Today's guest, we have Ainsley Duncombe. He came to UK with nothing. A few years later, he became the CEO of Groupon in the region. He was involved in the setup and starting of Property Finder and many other high-end businesses in the UAE and across the world. There's going to be tons of strategic advice you can take from this conversation, from leadership, from sales, from AI, and from real estate. So make sure you stay tuned to the entire podcast because some of the best parts are towards the end. One in particular hack in regards to actually getting people's credit card information and how to sell people on outbound dialing that improved their business and made them £100,000 extra in one single day. And if you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, please make sure you do that now. Let's get into the episode. Ainsley, you moved to Dubai in 2008. What was the big thing that first pulled you here? And I imagine you've seen some dramatic changes in that period of time as now it's 2025.
Interestingly enough, I actually watched a Discovery Channel documentary about them building the Palm Jumeirah. So I watched how they did it, the Dutch company, how they did the dredging, and I sat in the UK watching it, seeing it all. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this is absolutely insane. Whoever's doing this is either a genius or nuts. And it turned out that he was actually a genius. And I now live, and then we're actually on the island that I actually saw being built on TV.
Which is kind of ironic. And what I actually think is most amazing about this is when you actually think about it, we're probably at a mile out at sea right now.
We're in the ocean.
And I think when you see things like that, a big thing for me is Dubai kind of breaks a lot of limiting beliefs because you see certain things and you realise like pretty much anything is possible. And
Anything
I think
is possible.
A lot of people, we kind of talked about this beforehand, from the UK in particular, have very limiting beliefs. And when you come to someone like this, I think it's that law of exposure to opening your perspective to what can kind of be achieved.
100%. Anything, we're living here, anything can be possible. And it's been demonstrated so many times. Palm Jumeirah, Burj Khalifa, the world islands, we keep seeing that, if you can dream it, you literally can do it.
How do you think that's impacted your business career and opportunities? What do you think would have happened, say, if Ainsley in 2008 stayed in the UK versus where you are now?
The difference would be chalk and cheese. I dread to think. It makes me shudder to even think. I'm so grateful that I got on that plane all those years ago. My best friend Mark gave me 50 quid, which was his last 50 quid. I had no money. And they ended up leaving the UK and living abroad. So I dread to think it wouldn't have been pleasant, I doubt. And I'm just grateful for the opportunities I've been able to have.
What were you doing at that time in 2008?
I think I was working at Blockbuster Video.
Okay.
Now, for the youngsters that are watching this is Netflix at the store for the young people. So Blockbuster Video, the video store, and I was working there, and I actually quite enjoyed it, to be fair. But yeah, that wasn't the one.
If you talk about Blockbuster, that's actually very interesting because and we'll obviously go into your career and the other things you've done, but that's an example in terms of a business model that they dominated the market space but didn't evolve with things, how they were changing. And I believe they also had an option to buy Netflix and they didn't take it.
You are 100% correct. That is one of the best examples of business and an industry that's absolutely crushing it. I think at one stage they had over 200 stores across the UK. They're renting videos, 3 days, PlayStations. They're selling the Haagen-Dazs, and it was a fantastic business. It was making a lot of money. And you're right. Netflix came to them and put the offer in. And said, are you interested in doing some kind of collaboration? They laughed them out the room. Actually, they quite literally said, "No, we're not interested in purchasing you." And less than 10 years later, Netflix came along and took their breakfast.
Do you think that's an air of arrogance for people who are maybe market leaders sometimes?
I don't know, but I have to ask the Nokia CEO.
Yeah. Well, I was saying exactly. This is the next example I was going to think of, and the BlackBerry's a similar kind of thing.
The Nokia CEO, the BlackBerry CEO, we'd have to go and check with those guys. Yes, it's an example. Many times, and we're going to see it right now actually with quite a lot of the businesses and quite a lot of the industries, and we're going to see it getting in real estate as well. Many of those that are in that are kind of leading the pack, as it were. The incumbent's going to come along and it's going to change the game.
With you kind of being here and leaving the UK entirely, do you think you would ever go back to the UK, or do you think you're here for good now?
I definitely enjoy living in environments where the sun is shining, the weather is safe, and the environment is safe. And the tax benefits are clear to see.
And this is why I think it's funny, because I've seen a lot of people slate Dubai about it being hot in the summer, it's humid. I was like, I'd rather like trade the heat of the summer of Dubai versus the knife crime of London. So it's like, choose your kind of problem.
Yeah.
And I also think how bad the UK is also in the winter. It's okay, it's a bit hot, but at least it's sunny. And I think certain narratives kind of get pushed sometimes with people not kind of fully understanding.
Yeah. The funniest one is the people that hate Dubai that have never been here. Those are the ones, oh, it's an artificial place and all this kind of. Have you been here? No, never go there. Okay, cool. Man. Come, have a look, check it out, see, and then make a decision after you've been able to come. Because I think with everything, you need to kind of look at it with an open mind and look at the other opportunities before making a decision on them.
And you coming to the Middle East and coming to Dubai specifically, you became the CEO of Groupon for the Middle East?
That's correct.
How did that come about?
So my friend and I, we were in the UAE. At the time, we didn't have a job. We were both looking for jobs. Groupon had just recently come to the UAE from America. They had a handful in the team that had come over, 3 or 4 guys that had come over as senior management to set up the office over here. And I said to my friend, listen, we need to find a way of getting a job and doing something a little bit different. So I said to him, give him a quick call. And he called up and told him he was calling from an HR recruitment company. And he said to them, we are looking to provide, we know you're just new in town, you're looking for new staff. We're happy to kind of provide you with staff and send them across to you. And they're like, yeah, we've heard this before. Every recruitment company in town was calling them up and offering them staff. We said, well, listen, I'll tell you what, the staff that we're able to provide are significantly better than any of the other staff that any other companies are providing. They're like, really? That's significantly better. I will tell you what we'll do. We'll offer you 2 members of staff, sales team, to join your sales team, for you to try for 1 month, completely free of charge, no cost whatsoever. If you like them, you keep them for free. And if you don't like them, you let them go, no problem at all. You don't have to work with us again. But if you do like them, then obviously, we want to open up the relationship. And they said, it's not going to cost us any money at all. We said, it's not going to cost you a single penny. We just want to demonstrate how much better we are than all the other companies that are trying to send you people. They said, okay, cool. We said, they'll be there Monday morning, 9 o'clock. Me and my friend got ready. We turned up Monday morning, 9 o'clock. We started. And then 18 months later, I ended up becoming, 18 months later, and I ended up becoming the CEO. That's
a wild example of not taking no and also creating your own luck.
Yeah, well, at the time, we just wanted a job. And I had to, if all the fish are swimming in one direction, you've got to find a way to swim in a different direction so you're not doing the same as everybody else, right? So everybody was sending their CVs in and they were getting CVs, they were being inundated by them. But I just had to create a different way of being able to do it. My friend was really good on the phone as well. So it was also acknowledging his talents and his skills. He was a great orator. So I said, listen, you're definitely the man that's got to make this call.
So obviously in that scenario, and obviously your ability to sell anyway, and we can kind of go into that, his ability to sell and communicate in that is very important. What would you say, some people think sales is unethical or is kind of a dirty word in some industries?
All the sales is ultimately is a transfer of emotion. That's essentially all that sales is. And if you're unable to be a good communicator and you're able to kind of understand that, and most importantly, if you're able to listen. Most people think sales is talking. It's not at all. It's listening. If you listen to the client, they'll tell you exactly how to close them. In fact, interestingly enough, I had an example of this just yesterday. One of my guys, he messaged me and he said, I've got a client. The client's in Australia, I believe, and he wanted to buy an off-plan property in Dubai. Talked to the clients, going backwards and forwards, and he said the client wants to get a 2-bed. I'm like, great, fantastic. And then the client messaged him and said, I'm not too sure about it. I'm not too sure about Dubai. I'm speaking to some other brokers, all this kind of thing. I'm not too sure what's going on. So my guy wrote a message back that he was going to send back to the client. And he sent it to me, and the message went, right now, more properties are being sold in Dubai than London and New York combined, which is true. And he gave loads of facts and gave loads of different things. He said, Ainsley, what do you think about this? And I said, it's all factually correct. It's all great to go. I go, but do we actually know what the actual problem is? Do we actually know the reason why he was dancing around, but he didn't actually say why he didn't want to do it? So I said, why don't we just send him a message back and ask him, what's the main thing that's stopping him from getting this off-plan property right now? So he said, okay, cool. So he sent a message back to the guy. The guy goes, it's the price. I'm like, we don't need to talk about New York and London sales when the price, a 2-bed was too much. Okay, cool. Offer him a 1-bed or a studio.
And that's often, I think, what I see as sales, people aren't even finding like the real root cause of the problem, your objection.
Yeah.
And that's also...
They're assuming what they think the problem is, and they're putting in their own feeling for what a problem is, and that's not necessarily the problem.
So I managed a branch of estate agents in the UK for 7 years. So one of the things I used to see, I don't know if you see this with the people we work with here, is that often the problem with people who are very experienced versus people who are new, sometimes the freshest people off the boat, as they were, are actually the best because they don't presume anything and they're open-minded to what someone might buy or what someone might want, and they will ask more deeper questions.
Yeah. I do agree with that, but I also think experience is everything. Because being able to have experience in different markets and be able to understand it, it saves a lot of time.
Coming into leading, obviously, Groupon in the Middle East, what are the biggest things you learned from your experiences there?
Execution. Speed. Do it. Fail fast. Though that's really what I learned there. Those guys were so quick. It was one of the fastest growing companies in the world at the time. We were expanding rapidly in different markets. I'll always remember this one phone call. It was October, end of October, and we used to have the calls when the bosses from Germany would jump on the line, and there'd be like 21 countries all on this one phone call. Right? For some people, it must be like 2 o'clock in the morning for them jumping, but they all had to be on the call, and you all had to be there. And if you were late on the call, or if you left your mic open, it'd be like $1,000 fine, personal account. It was military. They wouldn't be messing around. But one country had brought these cars from China. Okay. And they were really popular because they're remote control. Kids could get inside them and drive them, but also the parent could have the remote control. So this one country did it, and the margins were really, really healthy. And he said, every country, go get these cars. And he goes, I want ships on the water by next week, which meant go source where you can find them from. Go get them listed and get them on the platform. And I want ships on the water. Start shipping these vehicles. So the speed at which we work, we had many different businesses would think about it, would look at it, would assess, and will this work, will this not work? We were able to know because 7 days later we were shipping product and we'd know whether people wanted it or not.
Quick interjection is the podcast. Most people watch these don't subscribe. I have one huge ask. My passion and project with this podcast is to give you as much value as possible to help you have the same success I have had. So I have one small ask. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, please subscribe now, leave us a 5-star review, and now back to the episode. Do you think a lot of businesses procrastinate on things like that, making decisions? Because one of the things I see with people, the most successful people, the most decisive, you deep down know whether you should do something or you shouldn't do something. And when I see people who are maybe inexperienced in business, is they sit on the fence because they can't make a decision, and that delay is what kills them. Yeah,
the paralysis is what they call it. But what I actually see, which is really interesting, is this is a learning that I didn't know before. Because I'm dealing with different clients in different price brackets now, what I'm able to see is those clients that have more money, they're a lot more decisive than those that have less money. And it's really, really interesting. So you can present something to somebody that's got a larger budget. So we've got this opportunity, this is here, this is here, this is here. They'll look at it, they'll assess it, they'll pull the trigger. Those that are earlier on and with the lower budgets, I'm not sure, let me think about it, let me look, let me think, let me see, and by the time they've done that, typically the opportunity is already gone. So yeah, being able to be decisive, being able to make a decision, and being able to jump on something, if it makes sense and you've done all your homework, obviously, is definitely those people that I'm seeing that are becoming more successful. That decisiveness, do you think that's a character trait or a learned skill? I think potentially it could be both. I think some people could have it as a character trait, just they're built like that to be decisive. But other people, through losing out on opportunities, they've seen if you procrastinate and wait too long, you can miss the boat, which quite often does happen, especially with great deals. If you've got a distress deal, that makes sense and is good, it's not going to sit around and wait for you to kind of make a decision.
With you being one of the early people in the door in terms of Groupon in the Middle East, what did you guys end up ramping up it to in terms of like staff numbers when you were here?
So obviously at the very beginning, there's less than 10 of us. And then, our height, we had over 200 of us. So yeah, we ramped up pretty significantly. And, one of the things I always remember, and I'm quite proud of this actually, we were one of the first businesses to start selling locally. So before Groupon was here, people were buying digitally and buying online, but they were buying directly from America. and they were shipping it to somewhere in an address in America, and then they were sending it back over to themselves to Dubai. It wasn't possible back then. So one of the biggest challenges we had was the fact that we had to educate people about the market. Back then, everyone was like, oh, if I use my credit card online, someone's going to steal the numbers and go buy a plasma TV. That was the mindset back then. People were not buying. So one of the things that I had to do when we first launched with the team is to be able to sell people vouchers for the spas and for that, so that you could purchase and immediately redeem. So that you get a printed voucher that you could print off and then take down to the spa or whatever, get a 2-for-1 or whatever the offer may well have been. So that people buy, receive, and build up the trust like that. And then we could start introducing physical products in as well. So that was really interesting.
From the promotion side, was there anything you guys did specifically that was like a home run or an offer or anything that really stood out?
The majority of the offers that we did were home runs and, did very, very well. That was the model of the business, which was quite good because people could save up to 80% off on things that they were purchasing online. And then that drove people down to the business. And then the idea was for the business then to better convert those new clients into long-standing customers by giving them a good value proposition, good service, allowing them to experience it. So it was almost like a try before you fully buy kind of method. So the majority of offers did do very, very well, just based off the model and the fact that people were saving so much money as opposed to doing traditional marketing. So that was the way of kind of doing it differently. And
with that, did you have the cultural differences in terms of selling in like the Middle East, in terms of maybe selling to locals of different nationalities? Because I see big differences, for example, in terms of buying behavior. The best consumers to sell to, in my opinion, is the US. Very decisive, they like buying, they love spending money, they love credit cards. Random statistic, the average American has a credit card limit of $29,000 compared to the UK, which is $6,000, which gives you a big difference in terms of buying power. And I think as you go more into like Europe, people become less decisive. And the other thing I'd say, we spend a lot of money on ads, is that statistically the lowest return on ad spend country in like the modern world is the UK, because people are very, very skeptical and they don't like spending money, and we're very kind of fear-minded. Did you have anything in terms of working here that you had to kind of work around, or anything that kind of surprised you?
It's so interesting that you say that, Charlie, because not with Groupon, but I had those kind of experiences. Okay. So let me just quickly take you through this. So I've worked in a few different countries around the world, and there are differences with different cultures and different nationalities. So US you touched on, I'll concur with you on that one. Yeah. When I was working on Wall Street and I was selling on the phones to the Americans all over the whole country. Americans, they only cared about three things. What have you got? How much does it cost? What does it do for me? That's all they cared about. Outside of that, essentially, everything would boil down to those kind of a variation of those kind of three questions, and nothing else outside of that. Sold in the UK. In the UK, what is it? Is it a scam? Will it actually work? They cared more about that than the price, or everything was skeptical and not believing it and not wanting to take it. And then I've done business in like the Middle East, but also in Saudi Arabia. In Saudi Arabia, who are you? Where are you from? And who's your father? That was essentially it, because it didn't matter what you were selling. If there was a problem, they needed to be able to go back to what area you're from, who your father is, and take it up with them. So it didn't matter what the product was to them. They were only concerned about who are you, what are you, so they can go back. And that's kind of like probably a tribal way of doing business. So it was very interesting. Different markets have different ways, and once you can understand that and see how things are different in different markets, then that kind of makes things very, very, very different.
Do you think Saudi's still the same doing business now? Because they seem to be trying to modernise very heavily.
Yeah, let me clarify. When I was there, it was a good few years ago. Okay. Women weren't driving then. A lot has changed from obviously when I was there to now. I think it's moving in the right direction. I think it's a huge country. It's like a big cruise ship. UAE is a small country, so it's like a speedboat, so it can move and be that much more agile. But I think it's moving more in the right direction. But I do think culturally, it's very, very different, and people do need to recognise that. It's not one way of selling for all. Definitely not.
And that's why I explain to people, like, I think in content, in sales, whatever, you need to be like a chameleon, and you just that ability to kind of blend in, but also kind of mirror people. So if you're going to speak to, so for example, if you're going to sell to a female, it's going to be slightly different than time you can sell to a male. You can be maybe more aggressive selling to a man than you wouldn't do that to a woman. And I think that's where people understanding that kind of like emotional intelligence of how to handle different people is, I think, a learned skill, but also some people naturally have it more than maybe others.
Yep, I would agree with that. There's also another interesting situation that I had in the UK. So we had a call centre, and we were selling to tradespeople, plumbers, electricians, all of that kind of thing. So everyone was on the phones and they're selling to plumbers and electricians. And the biggest challenge that we were getting across the phone when we're taking the tradesperson through everything is, I like the advertising that you're selling, the marketing you're selling, but I don't have my card with me right now. So let me get back home, or let me get to the office or whatever. Call me this evening, and I'll come on board. Or whatever, it's £299 and £299 for the entry level, and then £599, and we had different kind of packages depending on what they wanted to get. So I had this call centre, and all the guys are on the phones, and they're struggling. They keep getting to this bit where they couldn't get the credit card, which means obviously they weren't able to get the deal. They called them later, they wouldn't pick up, and all this kind of thing. But the client said that they definitely wanted it. So I was like, I thought about it, and then I came back in the next day and I said to the guys, okay, I've got an idea. I said, let me go on one of the phones. So they got the headsets and they can listen in while I'm on the phone as well. So I was speaking to this guy and I said, all right, John, so it's £299. It means you'll be involved in our directory. You'll be, online, and you'll also be able to receive phone calls and that kind of thing. I said, where do you want the calls to go? Your mobile or your landline? He's like, no, I want them to go to my mobile. I'm like, all right, brilliant, excellent. And I said, what is it that you normally use? Do you normally use a Visa or a MasterCard? He's like, no, I use a Visa. I'm like, you use a Visa. I said, unfortunately, there's some visas that we do take and there's some visas that we don't take. Your Visa, what does it begin with? Is it a 4 or a 5? And he'd be like, I'm not sure. Hang on, 1 second. Let me check. You pull out his wallet, pull out his card. Mine's a 4. Fantastic. We take that one. Read me the long number along the front. And we did that, and that changed our conversion across the. We did £100,000 cold. In one day, just after we changed that, which is kind of like a pretty monumental day for us, because that was a new record for us in terms of cold selling.
That's sick. The first thing I thought of as an idea is asking them, one of the things we need is your driving license number. Do you have your driving license? And they'll pull out their wallet, be like, I've got my driving license, my number's, because then, okay, where's your driving license in your wallet? So then they've got the wallet on them. But that's an even better way to, that's really, really clever.
We went straight for it.
Yeah.
We went straight for it because, and what was most interesting about that is the reason obviously that they were doing that is because obviously they're looking for, necessarily a way that they can kind of go in one direction and kind of go the other. But they said that they definitely wanted to buy, and, we wanted to kind of help them speed up that process.
And that's why I think one of my favourite things of business is saying it's like small hinges swing big doors. Like that little tweak of those 2-3 sentences must have made you guys a fortune and improved that whole process dramatically.
Yeah, we did £100,000 cold in one day, which is significant. So yeah.
In terms of you going obviously from Groupon and then setting up off-market listings, would you want to explain what that is?
It's an opportunity for people to be able to buy and sell property discreetly. So before I used to run Property Finder, which is one of the leading property portals here. My job was to open up the international markets, Qatar, Lebanon, Egypt, Morocco, Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. And now I'm doing the opposite, which is people that want to sell their properties but don't want to be on the portals for a number of reasons. Sometimes people want a bit more discretion. If it's a high profile or a celebrity, they don't want everybody to know that they're selling their property. Oh, he's selling his house, he must be in money trouble. No, he's selling his house, he wants to buy 2 more, So it just enables people to kind of be able to buy and purchase with more discretion.
Do you think the world is going much more in that in terms where people want more bespoke services to kind of keep certain things maybe private?
I think with the advent of AI and tech and the way things are changing, I think there's going to be some people that embrace it, love it and work with it. But I also think there's going to be a certain niche of people that kind of want to go in another direction, and they appreciate and they respect the privacy and, not sharing everything that they're doing online. So I want to be able to cater for those guys that understand and appreciate that.
Property Finder is a massive business. When was that set up?
Property Finder's 10 years older now, so yeah.
Okay, so we spoke earlier about businesses copying other businesses.
Yep.
In my opinion, Property Finder just copied Rightmove. And
you don't need to reinvent the wheel.
No,
just.
But it's a great example in terms of how simple something is. Of this is absolutely crushing the UK. And I remember when I was an agent there, the amount of money the company I worked for would pay to Rightmove for a month, and Zoopla just to list properties was insane. It's like the ultimate monopoly because you control the whole traffic flow. Because anyone wants a property, they go on there.
It's genius. It's genius, and it's it's now a unicorn. There's one of only 8 in the region, so it's absolutely incredible.
Your time there, what was the biggest lessons you think from that?
There's a few. So my job was to go to a country, land in the country, appoint a CEO or a country manager, and then kind of help them build out their different teams, and then we kind of go to work there in the different countries. So imagine I arrive in Egypt, and I'm the first man on the ground. I want to test the market, and I'm there, and I'm going up to these Egyptians. And the way it was in Egypt, if you wanted to rent or buy a property, there'd be an old guy sat outside the building on a wooden chair, and he'd just be sat there. Do you know what I mean? Just there. And people would come to him, and he'd talk to them. So I turn up, shiny shoes, suit, not speaking any Arabic. And I'm like, right, I want to kind of, start renting these things and get you on board our platform. Everyone's like, you're not from around here, are you? I'm like, clearly not. Your shiny shoes and all this kind of thing. So invariably what happened was, I would go to them and I'd tell them about coming on board the platform. They would be not interested in any way, shape or form. They're like, I've been doing this for 30 years, Ainsley. My dad's been doing it for 30 years before me. Don't think you're going to come here, from Dubai and change anything that we're doing. So I was like, all right, cool. So what I did, I said to them, listen, what properties do you have that are for rent or for sale in this building? And he go, yeah, we've got 6 properties that are for rent and for sale. I'm like, all right, brilliant. I said, can you take photographs of them and all that? They're like, no, we're not taking any photographs. I go, I want you to list them on the portal. They're like, it doesn't work like that over here, Ainsley. This is a different market. This isn't UK. This isn't Dubai. We're not doing any of that. So I'm racking my brains. I've got a hard no, and I'm like, this is a challenge. I need to get past this. So I said to them, all right, cool, no problem. I said, please give me the keys for the 6 properties that you've got that are for rent and sale and all the information. They're like, sure, no problem. They gave me the keys. I then went, took all the photographs, listed it on the portal, and then gave them the keys back and then left it. I said, I asked him, please give me, what number would you like the calls to go to? So he gave me his analog phone, his Nokia phone, gave me them. I'm like, cool. I left it for a couple of weeks, went back to go and see him. I go, how's things? He goes, yeah, good. He goes, I've got 3 more keys for you. I'm like, what do you mean you got 3 more keys? Yeah, here's some more. Go do the same. I'm like, why is that? He goes, no, we rented some of the other places when we sold some of the other things. I'm like, okay, brilliant, excellent. All right, cool. So I took these new keys, did all the legwork, took all the photographs, did everything, went back to him afterwards. He goes, I've got 10 more keys for you for a different property from one of my other friends. I said, no problem, but I'm now charging for the photos. He's like, you're charging for the photos now? I said, I'm charging for the photos. He goes, no problem, we'll do the photos ourselves. And then he started doing the photos himself, and then that situation would carry on. And then I went back to them and said, I'm now charging to list on the actual platform. Teach me how to list. And then that's how we basically took them from a hard no, we're not going to do it, to then taking them to actually then, and after that, they started listing, and then the rest is history, as it were.
It's almost kind of getting them proof of concept to buy in then, because as soon as they've got a taste of it and understand how easy it is, then you've almost given them the secret weapon, and they don't want to have it taken kind of away at that point, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And actually, ironically, this reminds you, it's kind of similar, I think, what's kind of happening with social media now, where it's very much kind of going a bit more to pay to play, where people were given tons and tons of organic traffic. That's now started to get reined in a bit, so people are having to spend money to then get the same traffic.
Yeah. Puppy dog, it's called the puppy dog close. Give it to them, let them experience it, let them see it, they can see the value, and once that, then you come take it away, and then they're happy to pay for it.
In terms of the market, in terms of Dubai, do you see this continuing to grow over the next 5-10 years?
I see it continuing to grow. 5 and 10 years is a long period of time, so I'm not sure if it's going to continue at the rate of which we're going right now. I mean, right now we're really this is one of the greatest bull markets I've ever seen. The market's on steroids right now. It's absolutely fantastic. We're seeing waves of people coming in from different countries, different areas, different regions. I think France potentially is going to be next.
Is it a big exodus from there?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a massive exodus from France as a prediction. We're going to see a lot of French nationals come over. I'm seeing that they're having lots of challenges in their market at the moment. There's talk about potential bailouts for them and that kind of thing. Whenever those kind of things happen, and if they do happen, they come with caveats. And if there's a bailout, there's certain things that need to happen. And typically, the wealthiest, the top tier, are the guys that end up having to pay the price. And feel the pinch, and sometimes when that happens, many of those people are not happy with it, and they want to look for an alternative so that they're not carrying the additional burden and the additional financial responsibility.
What's your opinion on Gary Stevenson?
Gary Stevenson. Oh yeah, Gary Stevenson. Yeah, interesting fella. Let me tell you this. I've got time for anybody that genuinely believes in what they're saying and has got passion behind it. That's the truth. And I do think he genuinely believes what he's saying, and he genuinely has passion behind what he's saying. So I've got time for anybody. I'll give anybody time. I don't need to agree with what they're saying, but I'll give them points and kudos for that. So I think he believes it. I think he really wants to make a change and wants to make a difference, and that's half the battle. I'm just not convinced that the way in which he's trying to do it is going to be that successful, and he's going to be able to get the movement that he wants to be able to get and get the momentum that he wants to be able to get to be able to make the changes that he wants to be able to change. But I've got time for him. I respect what he's trying to do, and I see what he's trying to do.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's just way to explain it's trying to like barking up the wrong tree. Is I think the theoretical idea of what he's trying to do is correct. However, in reality, is if you try and tax the wealthiest, most successful people who have the ability just to go wherever they want, they'll just leave.
It doesn't work.
And that's exactly what's happening in the UK right now. And the same thing is happening in France.
It doesn't work. You can't, it doesn't work like that. I think he's got a very, no disrespect to it, a simplistic view of how these things work. You know, they earn more, charge them more. On paper, it does kind of make sense. But in reality, and in the global world that we've got right now, you know, you can be anywhere in the world in like a few hours. So, and especially those people that have got the money and the resources to be able to move, if you squeeze them too hard, they'll jump on a jet and they'll go move somewhere else. And we're seeing a mass exodus of people doing that right now.
Well, that's why I think if you talk about the UK specifically, the statistics are frightening that 2024, I think it was 10,000 millionaires left the country. 2025 is going to be 16,000. So a 60% increase year on year, which is insane.
And they've still got the same tax bill. Yeah. So the government has still got to find the same amount of money, which means the people that are left there, they're having to spend the same kind of money from those people. And as we all know, when one of these millionaires leaves, it's not just them leaving. The knock-on effect of that is significant. You know, I think when every one leaves, there's like 100 other jobs and positions that are directly or indirectly affected. You know, they're using dry cleaners. You know, they're having their lunch. They're using their vehicles. You know, so it's it can be a challenge.
If we just jump back in terms of Property Finder, Groupon, the experience of like being involved in businesses that big, was there anything you specifically saw when you were first there that saw like these are the foundations for a monster business being built? I'd
love to say that I knew it was going to be a monster business, but I didn't. What I did know is that we were passionate. What I did know is that everybody was working very, very hard in terms of what they wanted to do. We had a true belief in what we were going to do. And it wasn't just like, you know, going to work and you're going to work just for going for work's sake. We had a belief, you know, there was a common goal. So no, of course I had no idea it was going to be grow into a unicorn and, you know, be valued over $1 billion. But I enjoyed doing it, learned a lot, worked with some fantastic people that I'm still kind of in contact with now. And I'm just really happy that I was able to get that opportunity.
How powerful do you think the network of people is you have from working in those environments, even being in somewhere like Dubai, how that has an impact on you going forwards?
I think that everything that I do and everything that kind of like people that work in sales is more about, it's a people business. It's not so much about the product. And I think relationships are everything. They can take years to make and minutes to break. They're everything. And I think those people that understand that and that nurture it. So for example, sometimes I see people and they do things to me and they you know, do something that's incorrect or not right. And I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. You can, you know, you might think that you've won and, you know, that few thousand or whatever. But long term, you haven't won because the relationship and the opportunities and the things that we could have potentially gone on to go and do were so much greater. And the things that you're not going to be able to do now, you know, it's a false economy. So that makes me smile.
Yeah, I've had a few experiences with that. And that's one of the things I think the world is much smaller than people realise, which is why you should also be careful never to kind of burn bridges.
The world is tiny. The world is absolutely tiny now. It's and also Dubai, everyone sees it when you're coming on the plane, you see all the towers and you think, it's a big, huge city. It's a village. And everybody knows everybody, or everybody knows somebody else that knows somebody else, and you know there'll be opportunities. In fact, I've seen it myself, and people have said, "Oh, Ainsley, what do you think about this person?" And I've had an experience that wasn't the best with that person. I'd say, you know, I've had experiences that wasn't the best with that person, but you know, you do you and do what you're going to do. And if people respect and understand where you're coming from, they're like, "Thanks for that, Ainsley. I appreciate that." You know, and that can obviously, you know, make changes and things along the board as well for them.
That's where I think one of the most powerful things for your business is positive word of mouth, but probably the most destroying thing for anyone's business is like negative word of mouth.
100%. Things can be stopped very, very quickly, and word of mouth is very powerful.
Let's talk about, you've told me about this before, your Maldives filming story.
Yeah.
What's the background on that?
Everybody likes this one. So we had a client that was a high profile client. He had a beautiful property in an area of an exclusive area of Dubai.
You're allowed to say where it is?
It was Al Barari. So he brought me around the property, walked me around the whole place. It was absolutely beautiful. And he said, Ainsley, I'd like you to sell this for me. I was like, all right, cool, no problem. He goes, there's a couple of catches. I'm like, what's that? He's like, you can't take any photos. I'm like, you don't need a broker, you need a magician. I said, okay, cool.
What was the value of the house?
I said, it was a good few million, 100 million, something like that. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful property. I said, am I allowed to take photos? That one of the things that it was a fantastic balcony that looked out over a really lush green area. And I said, am I allowed to take photographs from the balcony looking out away from the property? He said, no. I'm like, okay, cool, no problem. I can work with this. So I wandered around the property, looked around it, I saw it, but I noticed that there was lots of areas around the property that had similarity to the Maldives. So I'm like, okay, that's quite interesting. So then what I ended up doing was going over to the Maldives with the crew, filming places that were similar to the property. So for example, the crystal clear blue waters that it had in the pool. I then captured the Maldives crystal clear blue waters. It had palm trees in the property as well. And so I captured all of these things that were similar to the property, did a voiceover with it, and basically, took it back to the client and said, here you go, watch this. He was stunned, he was blown away, and he really liked it. And then we put that out and we were able to kind of market and sell the property based on that without ever showing the pictures of the property, but just talking about some of the key factors that the property had.
And it's similar to the credit card thing. It's a unique and different way to solve a problem, whereas almost like theory of constraints. If you're constrained from doing the normal thing, how can I solve this problem without being able to take photos of the house, which is a great example.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people would have, the fact that he said no to the photos, that would have stopped them in their tracks and they'd have been like, there's nowhere else to go. But I took the challenge and I thought, how can we still do the same thing, but with that, by using different parameters? And it's just about finding solutions, I think.
You work with obviously a lot of high profile people who discretion and privacy is obviously incredibly important. This is a good example. What are some of the big lessons you've maybe learned with working with those type of clientele?
Many of them are extraordinarily normal and humble and down to earth, and they're fantastic to work with, many of them. The way that I like to work with all my clients is just treat them like they're your parents, right? And then if you do that and just genuinely look out for their best interest, then all the rest comes with it. And I've got another example of that as well that just came into my mind. I have this one client, lovely guy. He gave me his property on the Palm to go and sell for him. No problem, sold it for him. It was an apartment, small apartment. He said, Ainsley, I've got another property that I'd like you to come and look at. This is a villa. This is one of my main properties. I said, okay, cool, no problem. So I went to his main property and he's walking me around and he's showing me all the things in the properties. This bath is from here, was shipped in from China, this is from Thailand, and this marble's from Italy. He's walking me through the whole place. And as he's walking me through the whole place, I could tell that he was in love with the property. So he said, Ainsley, would you sell it for me? I said, no. He's like, what? I said, no. I said, I can see you're in love with the property. I also knew his situation, which was he was going to continue to have a business in Dubai, but he was moving to Asia to go and work, but he was going to be coming backwards and forwards. So I said to him, I'll tell you what I'll do. I will short-term rent this property for you. You give me the dates when you're going to be back in the UAE, and whenever you're back in the UAE, I'll have the house empty and you can stay in your own property. He's like, what? I was like, yeah. His jaw hit the floor. He couldn't believe it because he's like, there's significantly less money in it for me than would have been if I'd have sold it. It was a beautiful property with a swimming pool and it was lovely. So I said, that's what I'll do. And I said, does that work for you? He said, that's amazing. He loved this property, it was great. So we ended up doing that for 1 year. He got significantly more money on the rental because I did a corporate rental for him, which got him a lot more money than what he was expecting and he would have got from a long-term rental. We did that for a year. And then a few months after we'd been doing it, he called me up. He goes, Ainsley, I've got a friend of mine that wants you to do a corporate rental on his property for him. I was like, okay, cool, no problem at all. Connect us up. Look, yeah, I'm happy to speak to him. It wasn't a friend, it was a business partner. I said, oh, cool. Business partner called me. I said, Ainsley, can you do the short-term corporate rental thing on my property for me? I'm like, sure, no problem at all. Where's your property? Because, oh no, I don't have the property yet. I need you to get it for me and then do the short-term rental for me afterwards. I'm like, no problem, cool. So I ended up getting a sale from his friend, and then ended up a year later, when he had finished his business and wrapped up his business in Dubai, he still gave me the property back, and I still sold the property for him anyway. So that's a good example of that, I think. It's
also a good example if you do a great job with one client, you end up then getting 2 clients, and the whole thing just kind of snowballs.
Correct. But I think what was you are right in terms of that, but what really ticked it for me is the fact that I did what was best for him, even at my own initial expense, but then it ended up kind of coming back to tenfold.
Do you think a lot of people in business, even outside of real estate, are too short-sighted in terms of just trying to money grab straight away rather than trying to play like maybe the longer term game with some things, and like you said, just doing the best thing for the client, knowing, like, I'm a big believer in kind of karma. If you treat people well, the whole thing kind of is a self-fulfilling prophecy to some degree.
Yeah.
What's your kind of interpretation of that?
I like to try and give people the benefit of the doubt as much as possible. And the problem is, you get many of the young guys that come over that are trying to do a sale so they can get enough money for lunch. So they're kind of forced in a way to kind of sell anything to anyone.
Yeah.
At any time. And I get it. I also came, when I left the UK with £50 myself. So I totally understand what it's like to be in that situation and having to fight and scrap for every penny. So when you're in a situation like that, and it's, eat or not, you are up against it. It can be challenging. So I would say that, yes, there are many people that do that, maybe through circumstance. But there are other people that aren't looking for lunch and are able to kind of offer what they can when they can, and something that makes sense for the client as well.
So you've been successful across multiple businesses. What are the main things you look to in terms of like systems and building teams out, and maybe metrics involved in terms of like scaling these things up?
There's a few core things that I work with. One is called signal and noise.
From Steve Jobs.
Yeah. I've taken that on, and it works really well for me. For those that kind of haven't heard of it, Steve Jobs and quite a lot of different entrepreneurs have kind of used it quite successfully. Is I try and focus every day on a minimum of 3 to 5 things that I must get done each day. And anything else, and that's the signal. I've got to go after those 3 things, and they must get done no matter what. Anything else that comes in is noise, and I try and not deal with the noise and work on making sure that consistently every day, 3 things, a minimum of 3 things are done each day, and working through that. And that's really been quite successful, because the problem is when you've got lots of things going on, lots of people messaging you, things are happening, you're getting busy, you can kind of get a little bit sidetracked. So that's something that's worked quite well for me, just on getting things done type of way.
Yeah, that's where I see a lot of people, they get stuck in the weeds and they're busy, but then they're not effective. And right. For me, it's like, how can you be maximally efficient in terms of what you can do? And also what I think I kind of obsess over is like, what's the highest leverage thing you can do at any point? Because like, for example, filming this podcast is super high leverage for both of us, because we'll be continued to be watched after we're both dead, which is kind of morbid, but it's true. And I think a lot of people just end up being busy messaging people on WhatsApp, Slack, kind of messing around, rather than actually getting down to doing the thing they actually need to do. And then when they actually start doing the thing they need to do, they realize it doesn't actually take as long as they thought.
That's right. You can, well, the other one you'll know as well, how long does it take to tidy a house? If you give yourself a month, it'll take a month. Give yourself an hour, it might take 2, but you still got it done, right? So it's all to do with kind of like how you kind of position yourself and all that. One of the other things, to answer that same question, is I also work in the rule of thirds.
Yeah.
In terms of dividing everything up, a third of the time things will be great, a third of the time things might be mellow, and a third of the time things may be challenging. And if you can understand that, then even when you're flying, you can know, okay, this is for a limited period of time, which is important to recognise and understand, especially right now when things are going really, really well in the market across the board. But there'll also be a time when things, will not be as busy and as crazy. And I think being able to understand that, see that, and to think about that is also really important.
How important do you think the ability is for people to handle their emotions in business?
It's really important. It's really important. They need to be able to kind of be able to kind of handle it. Let me say something else. We are the last generation of thinkers. we literally are the last generation of thinkers, because what I'm seeing now with AI and with how things are changing, people are using their brains less and less. And a great example of that will be the taxi drivers, the Uber drivers. Many of these guys right now, you give them a location of somewhere you want to go, and they're like, put it into the sat nav, and I can drive like that. And we all know in London, you've got the black cab drivers that used to have to learn the knowledge. They knew every street in London off the top of their head. There's many of the guys that drive now that aren't able to do that. They have to drive on sat nav. And I'm seeing that more and more become more and more prevalent, especially as AI is coming in more and more. The people are no longer thinking; they're kind of just doing what they're told.
And also, I think if we talk about AI, I think where a lot of people go wrong with this is AI is a tool, but you also have to be the person who knows how to use the tool and also have the intuition and the intelligence and the experience to know what good looks like, because it can give you an answer, right. But whether that's the right answer or the best answer depends on your experience to analyze that as an actual human being of how this information can actually be executed in the real world.
Yeah, correct. It's incredible. It's an incredible tool, but it's also frightening. Because so many of the younger generation that are coming up now, all this is very new to us and we're picking it up now, but many of these kids are going to be growing up with it, and they're going to be used to always immediately having an answer. But you're right, they don't know what's good and what's bad. They know what they're being told, and many of them will take that as gospel and run with that.
How do you see the AI disrupting the property industry? Do you think it can completely replace agents, or it will maybe make parts of the industry a lot more efficient?
I'm really happy you asked me that question. AI is going to change the game completely, in my opinion, with real estate. And I'll give you a real life example. Off-plan, which we touched on before. At the moment, you want to buy an off-plan property. You can come to me and I can tell you about, Russell Cayman, where the new Wynn Casino is about to come up, right? I can tell you, there's a good few projects that I know intimately and I know really, really well about it, and I can explain to you the benefits and all that kind of thing, which is fantastic, and which is what we're currently doing. With time, you're going to be able to, speak into your phone and speak into your AI app, real estate app, and say, I'm interested in getting a property in Russell Cayman. I want it to be 10 minutes drive from the casino. I want it to be ready in 2027 up to Q4. I want the sun to come up over the pool, on the south side of the property. I want the bedroom to be this particular size. I want it to have these particular facilities, and I want it, to be ready, such and such time in such and such a colour, if you want it to be, and press a button and it will come up. And not only that, unfortunately, I sleep for 6 to 8 hours every night. The AI is not. I speak English just about. The AI can talk to you in 37 different languages. I think humans are not going to be comparable. And the reason why I picked on the off plan to start with is because much of what you're purchasing there is numbers.
100%.
It's all numbers. There's very little emotion. People go, but people want a human to talk to a small degree, but it's numbers. The size of the property, it's when the property's ready, it's the price of the property. These are all the numbers that go in there. And I think for that part of the market, people are going to be able to go directly to AI. So I predict that 90% of brokers, especially the off-plan brokers, are going to be out of work in its typical format in the next 18 months or so.
I think also the big thing with that is it gives you speed, every option under the sun. You can ask it as many questions as you want. It's got full context. And also if people use their own AI correctly and upload their own information about them, it will also know your own finances and whether this is actually a good deal or like an agent's telling you it's a good deal because they want sales commission.
Correct. I mean, I just picked off a few key indicators, but it can go all the way down. You can ask it as many questions as you want, and it'll also answer you honestly to the best of its knowledge and to the best of the information that's being put inside it, right? So there are so many reasons why it's going to change the game, and the biggest one outside of all of those is it's not going to be charging the kind of commissions that a human may well be receiving, right? So I think for all of those reasons, it's about to change. And as we spoke about before with Nokia and mobile phones and iPhone and that kind of thing, it's going to change overnight. To be honest, it's actually already changed. It's just people haven't seen the effects of it already.
What do you think in the property industry, or maybe even businesses in Dubai in general, is safe from being replaced from AI, and apostrophe safe?
Your questions are so good. So let me answer this a slightly different way. I'm not avoiding the question, but a slightly different way, okay? So, and you may well have seen this as well, because I know you kind of keep up to speed on lots of this stuff. There was a podcast before and they were talking about AI, and the guy asked a similar kind of questions to that, and he said, well, not all jobs are going to be taken. He goes, give me an example of one that's not going to be taken. He goes, well, my girlfriend, she does retreats, and she does, different retreats and yoga retreats or whatever it is, and she gets people and she takes them away to, exotic locations, and they 20 or 30 of them will go, and they'll go and enjoy, and all that. AI can't possibly do that and can't replace her job and what she does. And the guy sat back and he said, no, you're right. AI probably can't replace holistic treats when the human takes you and takes you through it, and you spend a week or whatever away. He goes, it can't. How many people does she take again? 20 to 30 on each trip. He goes, okay. And if the accountant that went on that retreat no longer has his job because AI has replaced his job, so you no longer got 20 or 30 people that can afford to go on that trip may not be able to take place if the numbers are significantly less, which will then have a secondary knock-on effect to that particular kind of business. So it's not always the direct effect, it's the knock-on effect of that, because an accountant is another example of a business that, is just numbers. And AI very quickly, and as AI improves, we'll be able to kind of do many of those kind of tasks, as well as driving, and there's a whole plethora we need to be mindful, we need to be a little bit worried.
And I think that's where people need to kind of see the writing on the wall, not be afraid, but utilize these things, and it's happening whether you want it or not. So it's like, my opinion, like in our business and what we teach people, is very heavy on the AI usage and utilizing that, because it's an unfair advantage. And it's, the way I see it is exactly the same as when social media started coming out, like 2015, it was starting to get popular to 2018. I was like, okay, you can get all this traffic for free and sell stuff online. Well, this is wild. And it's exactly the same thing in terms of AI. Like, you could have a marketing team of 50 people now be replaced by one person who can use AI. So your ability in terms of having mass output and impact is higher than ever before. And a lot of people will be sleeping on this for the next 3 to 5 years.
That's right. Don't get me wrong. Those that listen and that understand and that work with it, it can be the best thing in the world. But those that, and to be honest, the majority of people that are watching this podcast right now are the ones that are listening, right? They want to learn, they want to understand. But those that don't, and it'll never come, it won't affect me, I'll be completely, it's very different. And one of the other things I think that I don't know if you'll agree with as well, that really is one way to combat it, is by working on your personal brand. I think personal brand is going to really, even if you're an accountant, and they are going to, those kind of roles are going to be taken. If you're able to work on your personal brand and have that, and people can understand that, and people by people, that will be one of the ways of being able to combat this. So I think that's going to be super important in the future.
For me, that's the most valuable thing anyone can build in the next 24 to 36 months, because it's essentially where you're starting to build a moat around you. If you become like the category king in terms of what you do, there'll always be a place for number one. And people always want to work with the best person for anything. And I think that's something people should kind of have in mind. And also, if you can control, we spoke earlier about distribution with something else, if you've got the ability to distribute traffic organically, you've got so many options in terms of what you can do.
The best known beats the best. Always.
In terms of your time in the UAE, what would be the biggest things you think you've probably learned from like a leadership standpoint? I've worked across CEO of Groupon, you've heavily involved in Property Finder when that started, you've obviously got your own successful businesses now. What would you say like the key things you've maybe learned from experience on the leadership side of things that help you now?
I think people are one of the most important things that people are one of the most important aspects of any business, and I think if you can kind of, if your people, your team, your squad, they really know that you're gunning for them and that you're working, you're in it with them, you really can build an unstoppable team, so leading from the front and leading by example has always been one of the ones. I've always been the first one to roll my sleeves up, as the Egypt example, going out on the street, understanding what the challenges is, understanding what the problem is, because once you understand it, then you can then go and take other people and teach them and educate them how best to go and approach a problem. And if they know that you've done it and you've been able to do it successfully, it makes a huge difference.
I'll give you a great example of that. Who do you think is the best entrepreneur in the world?
Ooh, who do I think the best entrepreneur in the world?
Or technically the most successful on paper is Elon Musk.
Yeah.
So
my mind was going towards.
Okay, so that was the answer I was looking for. So the reason why I say that is, I don't know if you've read his book.
Yeah.
The amount of examples in there where someone's like, this can't be done.
You can't do that.
It's like,
yes, you can.
Fucking watch me, and then he just does it.
Yeah.
And then he'll just do it himself, and he'll go to the library and learn about rockets, and then goes to Russia and buys ex-Soviet Union missiles and rockets and stuff. And it's really taking ownership and taking the bull by the horns. And I think one of the things, we work with a lot of business owners, and the people who struggle are the people who do not take ownership of certain things, or they want to try and delegate everything out. It's like, dude, you have to have a basic understanding of these things, so then you can then manage it. You can't just hire an ads agency and kind of hope for the best, and then you hire the cheapest one available and you wonder why it didn't work.
So yes, he's definitely one of the most successful, and yes, there's a plethora of lessons that we can learn from him, but he isn't who I would pick. He honestly isn't. I respect him. Do you know what I mean? I bow down. He's on another level. There's no question about that.
I wouldn't want to be him, put it like that.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be him. Yeah, he sleeps in his office sometimes and all that kind of thing. And
okay, I'll ask you a better question. Who would you want to be? I'll give you an example I think I've always had massive respect for. Richard Branson.
Yeah.
Just does a lot of cool stuff. He has done a lot of amazing things and also does a lot of charity work and other stuff.
Yeah. Richard Branson. Is it Mark Cuban?
Yeah.
I think more so than Richard Branson. I've met Richard before. Where I went to a wedding in the Caribbean in Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah, and it was, I was flying back to London, and it happened to be on a Virgin plane. And Richard was there in the airport with his tennis racket. And was walking through, and one thing I noticed, this was a good few years ago. We boarded the plane from the steps. He stood at the bottom of the steps and he shook every single passenger's hand.
Really? How long ago was this?
No, this is like 15 years ago.
It's not that long ago.
No, it's not that long ago. Yeah, 15, 18, 17 years ago. He was big and he was obviously massive. He didn't have to do that. He could have got on the plane, he could have got on the plane last, got on quietly, no one ever seen him, but he didn't. He made a point, stand at the bottom of the steps, shook everybody's hand as they went on, a small little quick one sentence or so. And then when we were during the flight, he was walking around the flight with his socks on and just talking to people and just chatting to people as we were walking through both cabins. I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that a lot. But one reason why I said Mark Cuban as opposed to somebody like Elon Musk, Mark Cuban, I believe he sold one of his businesses and he made a significant number of millionaires throughout his business. Not saying that Elon Musk hasn't done that, but I like the guys that they want to succeed, but they also want to try and bring as many of their guys that have helped them do it as well at the same time and bring them through with them. So Rich Branson, he's a great role model and he's built lots of multiple different types of businesses. But I think bringing everybody with you as well and also understanding the value of your people, I think is really, really important.
100%. To step into something different that's kind of relevant for me, having a daughter in a few weeks' time, how did becoming a dad kind of shift your priorities? And how old is your daughter?
She's 7. She's 7 now, yeah, Aria's 7. Best thing in the world. Wish I'd done it earlier, to be honest. There's nothing quite like it. When your child comes out and you look at your child and you I made a pact with myself, to make sure you always look after them and kind of do the best. I'm sure every parent does. It's a game changer. So one of the things I also, before I used to kind of work and enjoy working for myself and that kind of thing, but I think once my daughter came, it kind of gave me a different perspective. Working's great and it's fantastic and that's what we do. But for me, working just for numbers is kind of a little bit unfulfilled because the number is never enough. The number you never land with a number. But having a daughter or a child that you're able to work towards, but also then to be able to go and enjoy stuff with, is for me the game changer. So for me, my biggest thing. Some people say to me, what do you do for a living? And I said, well, my number one job is to look after my daughter and to take her traveling around the world, and that's where the value comes for me. To be in a position where I'm able to take I think my daughter this year, we've been to Portugal, Doha, Lisbon, Japan, to be able to take her she can experience those experiences is priceless.
Do you think it helped you become more efficient? And you mentioned the signal and noise thing earlier, that you suddenly realize there's probably all this bullshit that you're doing that doesn't really move the needle. So I'm a big believer in like the Pareto principle, that like 20% of actions create 80% of results, that you then just suddenly focus like all in on the 20%.
I got 2 phones, so I had a work phone and a personal phone, so that when I was with her, I'm able then to kind of leave one and just kind of like focus on the other. So yeah, I think it's a game changer. I'd recommend it.
With having kids in Dubai, how do you think that compares to maybe the UK or the US? Obviously trying to bring them up here is maybe slightly different.
I think it's significantly different. Safety, an aspect we spoke about before, but also the opportunities and the things they can do. Also, I believe that many of us have more free time. When I was living in the UK, when I was working in London, I was commuting for 3.5 hours per day, which means that that time is kind of just wasted almost. Being able to live here, it means you have more time, you're available, so you can spend more time, you can do more things, get outside more, because obviously the weather's better during the winter periods. So yeah.
That commute thing you just mentioned as well, because I remember I used to spend probably 2 hours a day on the M25.
Yeah.
And when you start to count up over the 7 years I worked there, that's a lot of time.
That's right.
And I think a lot of people don't actually take enough conscious thought of their life, of maybe how much of it they're wasting in maybe not positioning themselves in the right vehicles, the right places in the world sometimes, and they're just going along with kind of like the norm and trying to fit in. I think
that's a little harsh, because I think for many people they don't know anything different, right? So if that's all you've ever done, and that's all you've ever seen if all you've seen your parents do, you can't, you can't. There is nothing else. But that's the benefit and the beauty of travel, because by taking yourself out of that and going somewhere else and experiencing different things is the only way, or one of the ways in which you're able to kind of see a different perspective. So yeah, I think travel is the number one thing to understand people's different perspectives and people's mindsets and thoughts, and not everybody thinks the way you think, and the more you can meet people that don't think the way you think, the better. Typically when you're in your own area, your own bubble, you're only meeting with people that kind of that think in a similar way to what you think. And so I try as much as possible to get myself out of that and to meet people that can give me different perspectives, so I can learn from them.
Where do you think is the place, you've obviously travelled a lot, that's given you the biggest perspective shift?
India maybe.
Okay, why?
India was pretty interesting. So I was working in Kolkata at a call center in India, and just to give you a real quick bit of background, the call center was a 24-hour call center. So it was working around the clock, calling in to different countries. So you'd have 6 to 8 hours, it would be called into US, 6 to 8 hours called into UK, and then 6 to 8 hours, I think, called into Australia and stuff like that, right? So our shift was starting, I don't know, 9 o'clock in the evening, and we were finishing at 2 o'clock, something like that in the morning. So, and they gave me a driver that's driving backwards and forwards, but I came really close friends with the number 2, the Indian manager that was there, and he had a motorbike. So I said to him, can you take me home on the back of the motorbike, as opposed to me going with the car that's provided? He was like, sure, no problem. Anyway, we're driving along the road, and the wind's blowing in me and all that. I'm looking, all I can see are these rolled up carpets along the side of the road, what looked like carpets along the side of the road. So I'm like, we're going quite fast, and I'm nudging him. I'm like, what's all the carpets for? And he was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, what's all the carpets for? He's going really, really fast. I'm like, why is there so many carpets both sides of the road as we're going along? And he slowed down, and he goes, Ainsley, what are you talking about? I'm like, all of these things. He goes, they're not carpets, they're people. And it was people all the way along the road that were homeless, that rolled themselves up in sleeping bags, and they were all the way along the road. And it's such an eye-opener. To me, I thought, there must be carpets to take to market in the morning. But no, it was people that were sleeping. So that's pretty sobering.
I think things like that give you a lot of perspective. So I remember even going to Zambia in Africa, and like literally everyone's walking everywhere. There's barely any like cars. I was like, this is. And actually, I even remember going even to the hotel, and like even the start. This was like a luxury 5-star hotel. People didn't understand kind of basic communication, and like they didn't have actual kind of intelligence because the education level was obviously not particularly high. And I think for me that was really an eye-opening thing to realize that certain people haven't maybe had that benefit of like learning the basics of how to like write, read, and kind of communicate.
Yeah, it's a real shame. And I tell you what's even more sobering than that. You and I were sat here now, but had we been born in different countries and in different places and been exactly the same as how we are, our lives would have turned out very, very differently. And I think when you can kind of look at that and understand that, yeah, we're fortunate because of, you know, where we were born and things that we've done and the opportunities that our parents gave us, but many people don't get those opportunities. And that does make me sad. And that does make me want to try and see what I can do to help other people that weren't put in a position or weren't given the opportunities, some of the opportunities that we were given, and that didn't have anybody that was out there to help them.
And I think that's something most people don't think about, is if you're born in the UK, the US or Western Europe, you won the lottery from day one, because you got, maybe the UK isn't as great as it used to be, but you're a lot better off there than probably Calcutta in India.
There's no question about it. If just by being born in the UK, no matter who you are, just by getting that passport, number one, you can go to Calcutta.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah,
being born in Calcutta, you cannot necessarily just jump on a plane and go to London. For multiple of reasons. One, being able to afford it, but two, because of the visa system, the way the visas are done. You know, being in the UK, you can go to France. Being from Calcutta, you can't. So not you can't. It's more challenging. There's already things that are put in place to make things more challenging. So it's very unfair. The whole way that things are done. That's a whole other discussion. But what I would love to be able to do is to be able to kind of send the elevator back down, to be able to help those other young people that want to and that have got the same kind of mindset, to be able to go on to do different things.
And I personally believe there's a huge demand and gap for that type of thing, because I mentioned before, this reason I didn't particularly like school is I had loads of drive and energy, but I didn't want to sit in a classroom, and I knew this wasn't really what I wanted to do, but I wanted a way to kind of learn how to do business stuff and actually do my own thing. But there wasn't really an opportunity to do that other than maybe you go to university and do business studies. And I think that's where maybe conventional education doesn't fulfill that promise that maybe particularly young men probably want. But what I do think helps that is the unconventional education now of social media. Like you can go on YouTube and you can look up, and you mentioned Mark Cuban, you go up on YouTube, look at interviews of Mark Cuban, you can look at interviews of Elon Musk. You can learn from like the smartest people in the world for completely free, that when I was 15 you couldn't do that.
Yeah, it's pretty controversial, but yeah, school is not the one. School is not the one. Education is the one, but the way and the format in which it's delivered currently, and has been delivered for the last 100 years in certain countries, it definitely wasn't beneficial for me. I've learned more outside the classroom than they ever taught me inside the classroom.
That's why I think there's a big difference between theory and practice. It's like, so I love that Mike Tyson saying, like, everyone's got a plan to get punched in the face. It's like, because when you go and start a business, you suddenly realize like, oh, like not everyone wants to buy your thing, or like things don't kind of go the way you want. So I think that's why I always suggest people just to try things and just fail really fast, because you also build kind of thick skin from that as well.
It's the best. Fail fast. Get things out there, try them, do it would definitely be the motto on that.
I've got a great question I want to ask you, Ainsley. So when your kids Google you in 20 years, what do you want them to find?
When my kids Google me in 20 years, what do they want to find? Two things. One, that Dad worked hard and gave it everything that he had, and he worked the best he could with what he had. But two, more importantly than that, much more importantly than that, that Dad wanted to help other people. It's all very well going and being extremely successful and, you know, and doing this and doing that, and having the ability to travel and do this kind of thing. But I think what's more important than that is being able to help the next generation that's coming up, and being able to bring those guys up. And I'm a firm believer, if I can help one person, then I can probably help 10. And if I can help 10, I can probably do 1,000.
And that's why I'm also very passionate about helping people, coach people in education, because if you help those 1,000 people, they can then go and help another 1,000, and like the knock-on effect of that is massive.
That's when the magic happens.
Yeah, and that's a lot of people have helped me, and I know that I've helped you to get to the position you're in, and I see that as a debt that I almost need to repay, which is why we produce so much content and why we help and coach so many people. So I think that's a really good message. And then lastly, what message do you have for the next generation coming up?
Actually, I've got a little quote here that resonates with that. Everyone can rise above the circumstances that they have if they're dedicated and passionate to whatever they want to go and achieve. And I think that would be the sentiment. Everybody can rise above their current circumstances as long as they give it everything they've got. I just truly believe that. And so for some people watching this right now, they can go, well, I've got this problem and this situation and all of that. But no matter what, just be the best that you can be, no matter what you're doing. I know for a fact, even if I was a street sweeper, I'd be a damn good street sweeper. And I'd probably be one of the best street sweepers that they're definitely on that street and probably in the town or the city. So just give everything 100%.
That just reminded me of something when I was in Dubai airport. I remember seeing there was a guy, a cleaner, who was like polishing the floor. I think someone spilled something, and he was spending so much time to get this thing like perfect. Yeah. And you could tell the attention to detail. And I had so much respect for that because he cared. And I think people who care about whatever they do are the people who will end up being successful because
100%.
They pay attention to everything.
Not only that, you noticed it.
Yeah, I did literally. Yeah, I still remember it now. Yeah.
Not only that, you noticed it. So it doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter where you are. Whatever you're doing, just do it 100% and give it all the passion that you can. People will notice it. People will see it, and it will end up paying dividends in the future.
Awesome. Big thank you for your time today, Ainsley. Where's the best place for people to connect to you? LinkedIn, Instagram?
LinkedIn, I'm there, Ainsley Duncombe, and also on Instagram as well. They can find me at Ainsley Duncombe as well.
Cool. We'll drop all the links below. If you enjoyed the podcast, make sure you smash the like button, subscribe, share it with a friend, and we'll see you in the next episode coming up soon.